Good afternoon, and I'd like to open the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners meeting for work session, January the 3rd, 2012. Hope all the commissioners and everybody in the room had a great holiday break. Hope you got to relax a little bit. I know some of y'all went out of town, so I hope you came back with full of energy. How's that? And commissioners, I'll just point out, I'd like to try this agenda format, if you will, for the next couple months, see how you like it. The idea that I had behind it is to group things based on, like you can see with number 3, where there's just no action required, and 4, we would take some kind of action, presuming that in number 5 we put those items under number 4 actually on the agenda. Anything that you need that is slated for consent that you think should be on action, we can always move around for the meeting, the regular meeting. But we're trying to kind of organize, because sometimes, in all honesty, we get a report and I'm not real certain if it should be on the agenda or if we took care of it in the work session. So please give feedback to me or Kay, and we can tweak however we need to, and we'll see how it goes. So at this time, I would like a motion to approve the work session agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Good. By the way, Commissioner Cabarrus was having a little tire trouble, so he should be here soon as long as the air in the tire holds out. First item that we have is Kannapolis City Schools and Cabarrus County Schools, the QSAB projects. Lynn's here, and there's Will, Lynn Whitkey and Will Crabtree. Great to have you two.
Hello. Thank you.
Whichever order you want to go was perfectly fine with us.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to report from last time. I did have a meeting with the roofing engineer for the roof at KIS, and it looks like we're looking at about a March bid date on that. Hopefully, we have to send that off to the Department of Insurance and DPI to be approved. So probably 99% done with the design phase of that. So hopefully the approval process will go quick. Probably the next project that we're closest to bidding would be a chiller project at A.L. Brown High School. Working with engineers there. It's looking like we're going to do a lot of our work in the summer of 2012. So we've just been in the design phase up to this point, and are hoping to bid a lot of it in the spring of 2012. Any questions?
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I apologize for the late delivery of the documents, but what we have delivered in hard copy today are the two spreadsheets. One is what I call the milestones report, which sort of gives you an update on where we're at on the projects. And we have been doing a lot of different things. We've started a number of projects. We are currently under construction. I should say we started during the holiday break, doing things like asbestos abatement and whatnot at Concord High School and Central Cabarrus High School, so that the additional work that was pending that removal would be able to continue on. So that work has been done. The removal is complete now, and the contractors can proceed. And work will begin in the auditorium at Concord High School. And work is continuing on in the dining room expansion as we speak. At Central Cabarrus High School, there the work was ongoing in it's the security upgrading and improvements to the administrative offices. That work was halted because of the removal of flooring that had to be done. Now that work will continue. And that work actually in the offices is hoped to be completed by early spring of this year. The window project is on track with the majority of the windows will be manufactured and ready for installation to start in late spring. Hopefully, if we get some windows available on that project, we'll start to install whenever we have a teacher's day off or no school at spring break. So the other projects are moving along well. We are currently bidding today and tomorrow 3 of the IT projects. Those are at Robinson High School, and I don't recall I'd have to look through this carefully, but we have 3 projects that are bidding. Mount Pleasant Middle School was bid a couple of weeks ago, and that project is under contract now, and work will be started there shortly. If you look at the far right of this project milestones report, sort of tells you where each of the projects is, and most of the yellow indicates, or I should say all of the yellow indicates that a change in status has occurred in the project. So the work is ongoing at a number of the schools. Oh, the other project that we just got word on was Beverly Hills Elementary, where the windows are scheduled to come in the 2nd to 3rd week in January, and those windows will be installed in the, I think it's 3 or 4 classrooms in that school during the month of during the month of January and early February. Any questions on that report?
I have some questions, Madam Chairman. Mr. Whitkey, in regards to the Northwest High Gym, what's the status of that? Because it looks like, I don't know if it's been bid, I don't know what's going on.
No, at the moment, the chiller work.
No, the gym addition.
Oh, I'm sorry, the gym addition, excuse me. That design is on hold. We're looking at a couple of options.
What options are you looking at?
Right now, we're looking at ways of reducing budget if possible. We've encountered a number of changes that were required by code that we're going to address with our board on the 9th, and we'll be able to, once we've had that discussion, be able to come back to you next month with the direction that we would like to recommend in terms of how we solve the code issues and also the cost issues attendant to that.
Okay. And then on the second page, and I'm looking at this.
Yeah, oh, yes, sir.
What was the need for wireless at the newer schools, Hickory Ridge High School and J.M. Robinson? Well, actually, Robinson's 10 years old. Hickory Ridge is 3 years old?
No, it's about 6.
6 years old?
Yes, sir.
Was that just not a part of the original design?
That's correct. Yes, wireless, throughout schools is a relatively new concept, and I would say within the last 2 to 3 years. We've done it in the new schools, the brand-new schools, but not in these existing ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I would just point out, again, looking at the budget sheet, if you will, budget spreadsheet, that the numbers indicated in yellow are changes. We've talked about the magnet school change at Coltrane Webb in the past, and also the changes on the wireless projects, which is on the second sheet. The changes on the first sheet are, and I'll just specifically at Central Cabarrus High School, we had additional monies left over in the bidding of the window project, and we came in high on the office security renovations, and so we've moved monies from one project to another within that same school. And the same is true of Concord High School. There, we have decided to put the vocational building remodeling on hold for the time being to address the overrun in bids for the auditorium improvements. So we've moved money from the vocational building project to the auditorium to address that shortfall. Any other questions?
Any other questions? I will tell you that lunch did go well today. As indicated on here, Concord High School doesn't have doesn't have a cafeteria anymore. There's a lot of sheetrock up and
Yes.
very little space. They can go in and get food, and then they have to go to the commons area. And the commons area is small. But my understanding, though, I-State did not go down and fight the crowds. My understanding is they did get through lunch today
Good.
without too much difficulty, and we're looking forward to August. There's going to be a long school year. I told my students to bring lunch from home, just so that they can get their 20 minutes and actually get to eat. But it was interesting to see the faces today when they came in, and there's sheetrock up. You can't go through the cafeteria. So kids come in one door and they expect to go straight away to get their breakfast, and they go straight into a sheetrock wall. And they have to go the long way around. So it was kind of comical for me, but My hallway looked like a demilitarized zone with doors and everything cut through, so I know they were quite busy over the break. So.
They have been, yes.
But I think it'll be nice once everything is finished.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, we have Kyle. There you are. General Services to talk about the old Board of Elections demolition projects.
Yeah, please. Can you shift over to the right side? It's the right drawing that we need to kind of look at. You just magnify a little and then, yeah, and then scroll over to that one on the right-hand side. There you go. I just wanted to give the board an update about where we are in terms of the parking lot going where the former Board of Elections is. We finally got through all the surveying and the design and had an initial meeting with the City of Concord to go over their ordinances and make sure that we were all on the same page. Also, they're going to have the streetscaping project along that road, and that was actually supposed to start this month. It's been pushed back a little bit. The city hasn't been able to give us a specific time, but that would obviously tie into what we were doing here because we would not want to destroy anything that they went ahead and built. So we've kind of had that discussion. So it looks like our demolition and the parking lot would get done prior to them coming in and doing anything on that streetscape project. So what you're looking at here is an addition of 23 spaces, 4 of them being handicap. And with the laser, I'm trying to show you right up here is where the handicap will be. So that's literally right on Corbin, okay? And you're going to have ramp that's going to get you right up to there. So with the slope that we have to maintain for ADA access, you would have to take a ramp and then come up here to a ramp, and then you're on the street. And obviously, what you can't see here is because I didn't give you elevations, but that's about a 4 to 6 foot drop where that parking lot will be from where the actual sidewalk is. So there will be an actual picket, they call it a black picket fence. It's exactly what's along the Greenway. If you all are familiar, right across from the post office, will actually mimic exactly what they have there. They only have 4 feet high. We may end up with 6. I'm just a little concerned about somebody hurting themselves. But we will follow that to kind of match in what they've got. So the whole thing will be fenced. We will have to build a new retaining wall. So that's, if you all pull out of B level down in the governmental center, there will be a new retaining wall that goes there. And of course, we've got to add bushes and some bushes there and a couple other trees. Everything else along that road right now will be existing and is going to stay. We are going to have to add 2 light posts, and they are literally right there and right there where we will add them. And I don't think we will go ahead and make them look like exactly what's on the street. Those are pretty expensive, the green kind of casted ones, but we'll have something very similar, and we will follow whatever type of lighting the city is doing on their renovations is what we'll do when they say the actual type of light, whether it's LED or CFL or something else. So that's what we're looking at with those spaces and getting those handicaps up front. The only concerns that a couple people had were it's no longer going to be a pull-through. So if you look, there's one driveway. And obviously, if you're familiar with the streetscape project that they're doing, there will now be a divider in that road, so you wouldn't be able to turn in anyways. So once that all happens, you will literally enter there, and you will exit and only turn right and go up towards Corbin. One of the concerns is because we only have one driveway, you don't have a pull around. So say you drive in and the lot is full, what would you do? Well, we've added these 2 spots up here, and they'll literally be hashed out. So they won't be handicap parking, it won't be a parking space. It'll be the spot that you'll have to pull up to if the lot's full and back out. There was really no other option to do it because of the grade levels. I can't get another driveway out there. So I kind of want to give you an idea of where we are on that. We've pretty much handled everything to the point where I'm ready to go ahead and commission the demolition prints and get that bid out. And then once that's bid out, we'll probably come back to the board based on the price and kind of what our plan is to do that project. But everything else is taken care of. All the furniture has been surplused out of there. All the metal's been taken out and recycled. We've removed any type of flooring asbestos. We only have some asbestos left in the roofing material, and I can't remove that until we're ready to demo. I'll literally strip the roof pretty much 2-3 days before we're ready to demolish it. That'll be the same time we take off the air units and recycle those. So besides that, we're pretty much there. The only utility left hooked up at that building is electricity, and that would be taken out after I get all the contracts for demolition, because obviously when I walk people through the building, I want to be able to see what we're looking at lighting-wise. And when we do install the new light posts there, we're actually going to use our service from the governmental center. The electric service for the governmental center runs up the large retaining wall, feeds our cooling tower and our lights that are on there, and we'll just come right off of that. It'll be a lot easier and cheaper than having a separate account. Is there any questions?
Okay, so on the Corbin side, there'll be a sidewalk and a ramp, sidewalk, 6-foot rail,
Yes.
and a ramp, not really a switchback, but a ramp to go down for access from the lower level. So it's going to drop, if this were the sidewalk, it's going to drop straight down to where the parking will be.
You'll go down a ramp to get to that parking lot.
Right, but
And-
it's, I mean, from the street view, you're going to see a sidewalk, a fence,
Yes.
or the rail,
Yeah,
and then
yes.
a hole
Yeah.
from Corbin.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you're driving on Corbin if you'll be actually to see in that hole.
Okay.
It's going to be that much of a different grade, and you can actually. I tried to get the engineer to kind of give me an idea on the number of steps it would be to come up, and it's about 5 feet. Let me put it this way: I won't be able to be driving on Corbin and see if someone's illegally parked in a handicapped spot. I'll have to actually drive in there because that was the
Okay.
first question I asked.
Okay.
So yes, you will have that picket fence and of course the landscaping around it. And the ramp will also have its own handrails. That has nothing to do with the fencing. That's more of just an ADA code.
Right. And there are 4 handicap spots, and how
Yes.
many regular spots? Well,
19.
19 plus 4, so 23 total spots.
That is correct.
Any other questions? And at this time, you're just giving us the information.
That
When
is-
you get a little bit further along, you'll come back and tell us that we need to put it on the agenda for,
That is correct.
or
Depending
you
on.
want us to tell you if there's, at this time, you want to know if we want to change anything?
No, this is
that
just
really
for
where
your
you are?
information to let you know where we are in the process. I have not
Okay.
created the demolition prints, and until we have that, I can't bid it. When we bid it, I will come back in front of the board.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, the next items we have are for discussion, items for action at the regular meeting. The first item is the county manager's update on the proposed development at the corner of Union Street and Corbin. Are you going to do that, or Jonathan?
I'm just going to introduce it. Brian
Okay.
King is here, and I believe Mark Herman's if he has any questions for him. But Brian is with the Rotary Club of Concord. Of course, they had proposed to you a development at the corner of Union and Corbin. They have presented that to you, and I know there were some questions that the board had. So they've gone back and have refined their proposal, and they're here to present some of those refinements to you and go through what their proposal is.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thanks for having us back again and helping us through this process. I know a lot of you guys have had this proposal, so I don't know if you want me to go through it again, or maybe I should just ask if there are any questions. What do you prefer I do, Madam Chairperson?
I've gotten some emails from different residents saying that they may have signed a petition in objection to the quarterly, to the proposal, and I've gotten several emails from different residents saying they wanted to take their name off of that petition if there was a petition in the first place. And I think I forwarded them all the commissioners as well as to Mr. King, so he would know and keep a tally of if there's anybody now standing at the point of in opposition, just to let everybody know.
I don't think there's,
How about,
I do.
put it on page 288? which
We're
is
trying to
kind of
make
that picture.
everybody happy. I think we've done
That's
a
I
what
don't
I
think,
have.
pretty
that
good
I've
job.
seen
of
is
it.
There you
that
go.
there's not been, most opposition has fallen away from it, I think.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I think the design things were the biggest thing that people were concerned about, and what would it,
I
you know,
think
what
the big
exactly did it
concern has
entail?
always been the fact that people have called it a water park, and people immediately think of this giant, elephant squirting things and children running everywhere. But really, it's just part of the farmers market project is going to be a fountain, and it will be turned off. It can be turned off anytime, and so that feature also is just very small squirts of water that would come out when it's set. So I think that was the only initial fear of that.
Well, I had heard that City Councilman Ramser was concerned about when we are going to, how often we're going to patrol it and keep it clean and pick up trash. Has that been addressed?
In our meeting, actually, our meeting that we had, sort of an operational type meeting, we were discussing who was going to pick up the trash.
Okay.
And at the time during there, I don't think that's been settled completely, other than that the city has some of their maintenance workers travel those streets every day, so they're out there. We do not have maintenance people out there every day, so we're still negotiating that right now as far as the cleanup. The only thing that we've talked with Brian and his group about was the water feature was the biggest concern of ours. We did check with our risk manager, checked with our insurance carriers, and while there would not be an increase in premium, naturally there would be an increase in exposure to risk. So I wanted to make sure that you guys did understand that there is a potential there, but there would not be any increase in the premium itself. Some of the other concerns would be the parking lots or the parking spaces for the farmers market, if it ever came into play there. That driveway that's there is our fire department connection to our annex, so we wouldn't want anybody parking in that driveway or using that driveway. So all of the traffic we would be steering towards the one between us and the YCH Architect's office, and when we've discussed that with them, so they're fine.
I know the last meeting where we discussed this, there was a whole array of questions, and I never did get any response back from, not that I personally requested, but there was no follow-up with those whole list of questions that were asked. So I don't. I mean, of course, I can't recall every one of the questions that were asked that day, but.
I know, Brian, if I'm speaking out of time, I know he's met with the Downtown Development Corporation, the City of Concord, to address some of those, the Water and Sewer Authority, and he's included those in his report here. So those questions have been answered in here, and we've met with them as a staff. One was who was going to maintain the water system.
Right.
They've got contracts, or they'll have agreements in place with WASAC to maintain that. There were some other operational issues. The other was the risk.
Right.
We did check on the premiums. Again, no increase at this time, just the additional exposure. There were some concerns about running out into the kids being able to run into the traffic, and I think that you put a fence
Yes,
in that area there so that they couldn't run directly out into Union Street.
Right.
So those were the majority of the questions, and they've incorporated those into your report here. So.
And I do recall about the WASAC, and they were going to provide the water systems, but, you know, has there been any overall idea of what the cost will be to maintain that? I mean, it seems like there's still some things that's not been worked out as far as who's going to, if we have to have employees that's going to clean up the lot, or
Right.
are we paying the water bill on that, or?
I'll Mr. Billiford has been looking at those numbers, so I'll let him answer those. Is he still here? Come on up.
I believe the discussion we
You have to
had.
get on the microphone.
I believe that when we met, the city had said that they would handle the utilities.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They've agreed to a 5-year period where they will pick up the electric and the water bill. And then Wausau, of course, has agreed to the maintenance of the fountain, which they think is very minimal.
They've agreed to the maintenance, and then the county asked not just for maintenance, but also repair and replacement of any parts in it.
Right.
That doesn't really mean maintenance, so I wanted to see replacement and repair of any parts.
As far as site maintenance, there is going to be some. This was going to be a brand-new building, so the building there should not be much building maintenance. If there is, it should be under warranty, I would guess. There is going to be some garbage collection, cleanup afterwards. There won't be any preparation time because the ones that are using it would be responsible for bringing in their own equipment, so we would not be putting any additional county equipment out there. What else?
The nice thing about this, too, I think that there are several parties that are taking some share in this and making it happen. And I think the Rotary Club, through fundraising efforts, will have the capital to build it. And then we've got, in our, discussion, and the city has already voted for their utilities for the water and the electrical. And then, we hope that the county would then agree for just the general maintenance and, trash service. And then Wasac, their board has already voted, which is in this letter, to handle anything that would go wrong with the water feature, including the backflow preventer and all that kind of stuff, which I have no idea what that is, but some of that.
I mean, it sounds
I've learned a
great.
lot.
It does seem like there's a lot of support, but, 10 years down the road, all this discussion is going to be forgotten, and we're going to be the ones with it.
Well, that is correct. After that 5 years, or after the warranties on the buildings, or even with the warranties in place, Mr. Billifer and his staff would still be the one having to coordinate those.
And
those,
5 years, 5 years
changes.
isn't very long for the.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the type of materials that we're using on the building, such as standing seam roofs and steel structures and brick, and we've been very, we've listened to what needs to be done as far as stamped concrete. We don't want cracks, because we know the county can't use pesticides and those types of things. So in our designs, we've been very careful to make sure that we're considering the long-term cost of this for the county and for our citizens, because, we want this to be a perpetual thing. And, I just think it's a win-win for a lot of people in the way we're designing it and the way that there's a cooperative and collaborative effort. I just don't think there's, right now it's already being mowed and maintained as it is. We're going to just add some structures that we feel that will last a long, long time. So.
Yeah, and ultimately, it would be the county's responsibility as the facility begins to age, then it would be up to us to replace the concrete, repair the roofs and that type of stuff. But as Mr. King said, the materials do have a long life
Yeah, but
expectancy.
it doesn't keep us from going back to the Concord Rotary Club and saying, hey, guys.
Right, exactly.
We've got some issues here, and, how about helping out and seeing what we can get done? I mean, y'all are putting forth a lot of effort right now. I don't know why 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. How long has Concord Rotary Club been around?
Yeah, this is our 90th anniversary. Yeah.
It'll add to that, too. I don't, you have all these folks that are supporting, including the Garden Club, Residents Historic Concord, Downtown Development Corporation. Those are other sources, and who knows, in the out years, we could even be looking at ways that people could make contributions, memorial contributions to a fund to maintain the space. So,
And
yes,
that's-
because to me, the thing is going to be the pumps. That's going to be the high dollar maintenance, the recurring maintenance thing. Then the Wasac's taking care of that. You're looking at roofs, concrete, and grounds maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we doing grounds maintenance over there?
Right.
So.
Okay.
How long is the city gonna cover the water and electricity on that?
Well, what's going to happen at the end, and we've all talked about this, they approved it, and I need to refer to this letter.
I thought I seen a page on here somewhere, that was in the full, there's like $250 a month estimated.
That's right. It's tough to guesstimate, but they approved it for 5 years, and then they want to
The
revisit
county takes it after
after
5
that.
years?
I'm sorry?
The county takes it after 5 years, or?
No, it's yet to be determined after 5 years. The city said they want to review it and see where we are after 5 years.
But you can turn the water off if you want to. I mean, that's just the biggest cost. We estimated the time and utilization of it, and that's where we know how much per sprinkler that it would use per gallon, and we also don't know exactly what the hours might be. If it warrants longer hours, then, and if everybody says, wow, this is a wonderful thing, let's turn this thing on more, it's really attracting business, then, maybe it's going to be on a lot more. Because the water feature is something that can be activated by someone to come up and then it turns off after a bit of time, we just had no idea, but we were very aggressive with our estimates so that it would, hopefully we won't have any surprises on that, and we use the highest gallons per minute usage that the city of Concord, based on their rate schedule. And so a lot of those estimates are pie in the sky at this point. We don't know, but we tried to be aggressive. And the city, said, because we don't know the utilization, we just want to be able to, after 5 years, determine, because, the county Parks and Rec is going to ultimately have control over that as well, whether to turn it off or on. So, and that's why they said, we like this idea, but we don't want to commit to too long. And if it's just it won't be, but if it's just something that nobody likes, turn it off, it's just going to be a nice concrete circle, and that's the way we wanted it. We don't want it to be always a fountain, because on a balmy day like this, we just don't think that it's going to be used, and you might want a big, just concrete pedestrian space, So this is the way we designed it, not solely to be a fountain.
We've worked with them for quite a while now, and they've addressed most of our concerns, or just about all of our concerns. The only one that was really outstanding that they really can't address is what, and it's hard for us to measure too, what is that increased exposure. So other than that, they've addressed all of our concerns, and I think it'll be a very nice addition to downtown.
I'd make a motion that we move forward with working with the Concord Rotary Club in the development of this corner.
Okay, we have a motion. I need to make some comments because I hadn't had a chance yet. Is
I'll
there a
second
second?
I'll second.
Well, I'm sorry, we're going to put it on the agenda for us to do in 2
Okay, I'll
weeks.
make a motion to place this
So-
on the consent agenda after Madam Chair's comments.
Okay, well,
And I'll second that.
my comments are, I don't like the water feature. I'll be honest with you. I don't like the risk exposure at all. I think if it's a concrete design like that, I'm fine with that. But I don't like the water feature at all. I just think that we're going to, I think that the responsibility that we have is to make sure the county doesn't have the additional risk exposure, and I just think that's a risk that I'm not willing to go. I can't go along with the water part. That's just me personally. I just think there's too much risk involved, the potential for too much. The other thing is that the letter from Parks and Rec says that we will research adding the facility to existing software for scheduling and reserving the facility. Don't know if they've been able to do that. We have cut back on our Parks Department staff. I would think that, that I'm not exactly, I'm not going to call out Londa, I know she was here earlier, on that, but, that could take up time. I think that the farmer's market can get into a schedule. That's no big deal. When the city has events, obviously that would be used because you can still hear music from there. I think there should be some agreement that if the city is having a big event, that they're also picking up the trash for the big events. If we have to do something, I don't know, once a week to go by, that's probably not quite so bad, but I like to come downtown when they have concerts and stuff, and there's a lot of people down there. If you look at the parade route, when the parade route's over with, there are a lot of city employees picking up trash because there's trash the whole parade route. So I don't want us to be in a position where there's some event going on, and at 10 o'clock at night, when they're cleaning everything up from a concert, Kyle gets a phone call saying, you need to be up here right now and clean up the trash, because I don't think that's fair for him. So I would like to get the trash, which you said you're working on the trash issue. So I would like to get that confirmed on who's doing what when. Like I said, I don't think it's a big deal if it's once a week we have to go empty, but as a public space, I just think that's going to have a lot more than, say, this building has. Parks and Rec need to verify exactly what's going to be asked of them and their limited staff, and I just can't support the risk that we would take on as the water park.
Madam
So
Chair, on the
those are my
Parks and
ideas.
Rec issue, we did discuss that further, and I think it's included in their proposal that it would not be available for private use, which was why, so we will not need the reservation software for that purpose. So it didn't need to be added.
That's good. So those are my comments. And the idea is, instead of putting every one of these individually on the agenda, that once we go through everything, we'll decide where they need to go as a group. That was kind of the idea behind it.
Well,
But that's, you can still put it on there.
I understand. In regards to your concerns about the safety issue, I would venture to guess that there's not that much of a difference, a safety issue, in regards to the water park here as opposed to a 4 to a 6 foot drop at the parking deck where the old Board of Elections is going to be. So I just think that, I understand what you're saying. I just think that it's something we can look at, and like Mr. King said and Mr. Herman said, is if it is a risk factor that we're not comfortable with, we can always just turn the water off. Is that correct?
That is correct. That would be an investment that we had made that wouldn't be used. We would obviously not like that, but I think that once you realize how harmless that is, it really,
Yeah.
I mean, I would welcome folks to, go to downtown Charleston or downtown Wilmington and see in front of I'm not talking about the big ones on the waterfront, I'm talking about the very small one in front of the Children's Museum in downtown Charleston. Very, very minimal fountain right on the side of the street. There's even no fence there, but, it's just a really neat feature to have in a downtown area, and many, many downtown areas do have these. And so I don't know what my Special Projects Committee would say if we went back and said the water feature's off, because I don't know how many people would then want to do it.
And I may be the only one that has a concern about
I
the
know.
risk factor.
I know.
I just think that that's something that we do need to make sure that we consider is the risk factor of, what
Right.
would happen on a water park.
Yeah.
I'm not
If-
disagreeing with your comments. I just,
If this matter,
that's kind of where I am.
if this matter goes to our agenda on the 17th, would it be difficult to get somebody to get in touch with Chattanooga? Because they have a very large, very much larger than this, in a park that's right beside a merry-go-round that I've spent, with my kids, many of hours watching them running around in that water. So I don't know if Chattanooga could give us an idea. I know them specifically because I've been there. I'm not certain about Charleston or these others, but if someone could give Chattanooga a call and say, hey, I know there's risk, but what's the real risk that y'all seen, if any? Give us an idea. Because that actually is, it's shooting water about softly, but it's shooting it up about 6 foot to 8 foot across. There is a line, there's a turtle, there's a fish, and they're shooting water across, and they're shooting water straight up.
But I promise you, we're not going to have a big
Right.
water park. It's
No,
not going
it's
to be the
not.
lion and the turtle.
Well, I think, to address, I'm sure about the risk part of it, I think it's a flat surface. It's only going to be sloped enough to allow for drainage back into the pump system. I would imagine the greatest risk you would have, it would be excess water pressure, but I would not think it would be for something such as this. You're going to have water pressure that's going to potentially harm a child, hit them in the face or knock them down like that. So that would, that's what we already have a pool out at Camp Spencer that this, we have liability there. It's probably much greater than what this would be. So, that's my opinion on it, so.
I'm not disagreeing with you. We have lifeguards on duty at Camp
Yeah,
Spencer.
so-
I'm just saying, that's the only thing. I think the idea of the park on that corner is a nice addition.
Mm-hmm.
It's within walking distance for me, so I'm sure that I will use it. I have no doubt that that'll be the case. I'm just saying, that's just the area that I have the area of most concern was cleaning up the trash. And I think it's because, I think you mentioned it, that's what it said in the paper. When's the county going to come clean up trash? I think that was in the article about that. So I want to make sure that was taken care of, since that was mentioned apparently in their discussions. And just to say that the one thing that I am still uncomfortable with is the water feature. But I'm only one, so I'm perfectly fine if you guys all say, do the water feature. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that's a concern I have.
Don't Kannapolis have one in that park up there?
They have a splash pad up there.
Similar, isn't it?
Sounds good. I don't know that much about it. In all honesty, I know they have it up there. I haven't ever been to it. So.
Mr. Burge, this is where I've had the most misunderstanding. I think that when you go to Kannapolis' splash pad, you're going there for the splash pad, and it's really a destination to go. You're going to bring your bathing suit and your towel. This is not that at all. This is really just sort of a visual feature in an urban area. And, if it splashes a little kid every once in a while, I think that there would be the opportunity for them to play in the thing. But this is not going to be one of those places where people are going to bring their bathing suit and their towel and come park to go play in this thing because of the small amount that that it does squirt. But, you know, I think part of the reason why we want to do this is because it's going to bring, it's yet another common feature downtown that we need for many reasons, especially since there's a lot of visitors that are going to be visiting us in Carolina Courts, and this might bring more people down to the area, say, let's go check out that, little fountain that we saw, and maybe they'll pass some stores along the way and pick up a couple things in the stores, and maybe on that day that their kids are having an AAU tournament, they're going to have, farmers market there, and it's just going to be yet another additional attraction. Otherwise, it's just a green patch.
It's just for looks.
Well, it is in play. I mean,
It'll really look good when somebody throws a box of Tide in it.
We used to do that in college.
Okay.
Would it
and-
make it, let me ask this question, and I guess I'll talk about that, is that given all the stuff that's trying to work out, with Kyle, with your group and maintenance and, upkeep, cleanup after events and Concord using it and us using it, who's responsible for what? Would it be simpler to convey the property to the city of Concord and then along with that liability and the risk and let them develop, let the Rotary Club develop with the city of Concord, and we would like a 100-year lease or something like that on the property, or just an outright conveyance of the property to the city of Concord? That would make
That was never discussed.
Okay.
No, I'm not quite sure that they would be
Well,
interested
yeah.
in that. I mean, it's.
$1 for 100 years or something, for.
Right.
Yeah,
We've not discussed that.
yeah. Okay.
Well, I certainly think, throughout all this, I think it's a good idea, a good project. I think my main concern is who's going to pick up the trash. I know that seems like a small concern, but whenever you drive past it every day, and if there's going to be some questions about who's going to be responsible for cleaning that up, and it's something that's noticeable, and I know it's something small, and I'd like to see something like that worked out. And I understand Commissioner Poole's opinion on the liability. I think it's much more dangerous having kids playing around a splash pad than walking by a fence on Corbin Avenue. That is certainly much more of a liability. But I think the main thing is who's going to keep it clean, and I'd like to know something on that.
Yeah. And
We will have those answers for you at your regular meeting.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
we still have a motion and a second on the floor.
okay.
Do we need to do that now or later?
Can we do it later?
That's fine. Well, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank-
But we'll come back to that, so
Okay.
that's okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you
guys
very much.
Appreciate it.
Next item is Salisbury Rowan Community Action Agency Incorporated, presentation of fiscal year 12-13 application for funding. Denisha Torrance, there you is here with us.
Commissioners,
How
if
are
I
you
could just take a moment and let you know that there are some additional pages on the grant application that we received this morning that you would not have had an opportunity to see yet. Just want to make you aware of that.
Thank you. This is for the Community Services Block Grant for 2012-2013 program year. And this is kind of new to us, so you have to excuse me if I don't have all of the answers for you today. But we do have to provide this information to the county commissioners in the counties that we serve. For this program, we do serve Cabarrus and Rowan County, so I have to do this again for Rowan County. It does not have to be approved, but it does have to be reviewed and have a 30-day comment period. If you have any comments, you can make those comments and submit that to our agency. Enclosed, you did receive a copy of the grant. I do want to go over the money that will be coming through Cabarrus and Rowan County and the total budget for this next program year. The total budget is $383,809. It is split with Cabarrus receiving $153,524. Rowan County will be receiving $230,285. We are in the planning period of year 3. We did have to have a public hearing for the first initial planning process. We went ahead and had a second hearing for the second year. We did not have to do that, so we only had to submit the planning hearing information the first year. So we are again in planning year 3 of 3. We will provide supportive services for individuals and families in Cabarrus and Rowan counties. We are set to serve 110 individuals or families within the 2 counties. We are expected to carry over 50 of those families that we're working with currently. And we're going to bring in 60 new families or individuals into our program. And we're going to provide them with a lot of supportive services. Some of those supportive services would be educational assistance, emergency assistance, transportation assistance, housing, food, daycare assistance, etc. So this program is very wide, and we do provide a lot of services, even down to used appliances that we can provide for these families. So we work with families who are low income. The guidelines are set by the OEO, which is Office of Economic Opportunity. And so we're serving these families in these 2 counties to help them to become more self-sufficient. Some other things that we do is we provide some budgeting. We offer them workshops, which are mandatory. We provide healthy eating workshops, extreme couponing workshops. So that was one of our big topics this year. We also do tax talk because we want the participants to not go to H&R Block. We want them to use Vita sites because they are low-income families. And I do want you to know that our agency has been around for 47 years. We do have other programs in our agency. We have weatherization. We have the Workforce Investment Act. And we also have Head Start. In Head Start, we serve 5 counties. And so today, I just want to make sure that you are aware of the funds that are coming through Cabarrus County and also Rowan County. So like I said, this is new for us, but we have been receiving this funding for many years. I've only been there 10, but it's been there for 20-plus years coming through. And so that's my presentation for today, and if you have any questions.
You're located in Salisbury, right?
The
Where
main
your
office,
office is.
the main office is located in Salisbury.
Do you have an office in Cabarrus County that
We
you
work out of
use?
JobLink.
At JobLink?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so if someone goes to Employment Security / JobLink building, then their staff in that process would refer them to you or make appointments with you?
No, they
How
would
does that
actually be
work?
served at the JobLink.
Okay.
For my program and also Workforce Investment Act, there are staff there in those 2 programs housed at the JobLink Center.
So if somebody hears of this, they would go there, say that's what they need to talk to somebody about, and you have a staff person on site that they would just be able to go ahead and talk to, or
Yes.
if they were busy, make an appointment to come see you.
Yes, we have 2 case managers housed at the JobLink Center.
Okay. And how would somebody find out how would somebody know to go there? I mean, how
Well,
would
we're
they just
partners
know?
with JobLink, so we're there in the partners meeting. So we're there with Department of Social Services, Cooperative Christian Ministries, a wide variety of agencies are there. So those partners there know that we are there. So any participants that come into the JobLink Center, they refer them to our program if they qualify.
So most of the people you get are referred from, you work together hand in hand with a number of agencies, and so one agency does one thing, one does something else, and you all know the resources. But you typically don't have somebody just walk in the door and say, I need to talk to somebody about this program. Would that be
Sometimes,
true?
because it is word of mouth.
Okay.
So it's kind of spreading around now that we have an additional staff person there. So it is spreading around. So a lot of times, we're not getting them all through referrals from JobLink workers. We're getting them from word of mouth now.
And how is the split between the amount of money between Cabarrus and Rowan, the amount of people served between Cabarrus and Rowan determined?
It's determined by the amount of people in poverty versus the 2 counties. So there are more people in poverty in Rowan County, so there's more funding going through Rowan County.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners?
Where are you applying to get the money from?
The Office of Economic Opportunity
Where is that located?
in Raleigh.
That's a,
This is funds coming from the legislature and, these are funds coming from the legislature.
State and federal funds, yes.
How much is state funds versus federal funds?
I do not have that breakdown with me. I'm sorry, don't have that information with me.
Thank you.
I've got a question. You had mentioned working with the Department of Social Services. It says, in our agenda packet, it says that SRCAA interacts with DSS on limited amount. I mean, just, just from what you spoke about, just in general on what you interact with them about, is that correct? Okay.
Yes,
Well-
because they are in the partners meeting with us, so we do interact with Department of Social Services.
Okay. Why do you not work with the Health Alliance? The Cabarrus Health Alliance, is there?
We mostly do
reasoning?
referrals to the
Okay.
Health Alliance for both counties.
Okay.
And mostly for pregnant women especially. We do a lot of referrals into the health department.
Okay.
How many paid staff do y'all have?
6,
That's all.
yes. And also, there's an
Six-
organizational chart.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
six in your division, but you've got.
Yes,
you've
6 in
got-
my division, but we have over 200 employees in the
Oh,
whole agency.
In so at that chart, everybody on that chart's on the payroll?
Yes, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know, I've seen it.
And we operate Head Start in 5 counties, so you're talking, I always get them turned around, but Rowan County, Moore, Montgomery, Stanley, and Davidson County.
I mean, you're talking about helping the poor. How much of these funds actually go to help the poor and how much goes to paid staff?
If you look
Percentage.
at, there's a breakdown in the budget, and it's per county.
page 320 in your agenda book.
No.
That's
it's-
just for this program.
Yes, this is just for this program. It's on further down. But the salaries for Cabarrus County and the client services, for Cabarrus County is $31,920. Come this on down some more. On down. There we go.
So $193,000 is going to salaries and wages, correct? Plus your fringe benefits of $53,000.
Yes.
That don't leave a whole lot to help the poor, does it?
No, sir, we do provide intensive case management services, so it's not a lot of paying your bills, for say. We provide methods to prevent them from having to go to DSS or Salvation Army or Cooperative Christian Ministries. We provide those services so they can budget, learn how to save, things like that. So we put those things in place so they don't have to. And then if an emergency comes up, then we can assist.
Any other questions?
Not this
Okay.
time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is on page 142. Let's see if I have the right number. Yeah, 142 of your agenda, options for the Old Bethel School property.
As you're aware, the Board of Trustees of Woodson University have decided to withdraw their offer to purchase the Old Bethel School property. So this is back before you to provide some direction to us. There is quite a bit of information because it has been at least a little while since you discussed it last, although not that long. Obviously, one of the options before you is that we that we actually do the demolition on the property that we've talked about, which would include the lead and asbestos abatement prior to doing that demolition, and then putting the property on the market as raw property. The other options, of course, are to go back through the same sealed bid process that you've been doing, or perhaps even to reconsider some of the previous bids that were placed on the property. Again, Mr. Billifer's here. If you have questions about that asbestos and lead abatement, there is quite a bit of it. It's 5 buildings. I mean, I'm sure I've reviewed those reports that we included in the agenda, and it's very extensive. But other than that, we are looking for some direction from the board.
For the reports that you have, would those have to be updated to make sure?
If we go much longer, yes, the answer to your question is yes, they would be. You have a certain statute of limitations. That's why when we first got the buildings from the school, they had already had one done, and it had expired, so I had to have it done again.
Questions, please. I have a few, but I'll let you go first.
I've been dealing with this thing since 2004. We have met, we have talked, we have looked at every single option on this thing, and as far as I'm concerned right now, that between the time from now and get the paperwork processed, if somebody wants to come forward and pay cash for the property, then they can have it free and clear. If not, then we'll do what we need to do to get it cleared up and sold. I mean, I don't know anything else we can do. Everybody keeps talking about they want to save the building, but no one ever seems to come forward with any kind of concrete, no pun intended, any kind of concrete solution to that. So,
do you have any idea what the cost, what we're looking at, and
for
how
abatement or for abatement and demolition?
I would say, well, you have to do it in 2 stages. So the abatement and then the demolition. I think you're going to have to do abatement and demolition both, in all honesty. I think one of the wisest moves that a school board a number of years ago made was giving that to the county in exchange for funding for, I think, a school or something. It was a smart move on the school board's part to send it to the county. Yeehaw.
to be honest with you, I think we learned a lesson that always
never say
exercise right of first refusal.
I just think, did you get to go out and tour? I know you.
Not yet.
Okay. Commissioner Burridge had wanted to go out there. I don't know if anybody else wants to go out and look at it. I don't know if you've been out there yet. Kyle can help arrange that. You need a hard hat and everything. I mean, lots of stuff. But,
I'm going to talk to some people tomorrow that may put a bid in on it. I don't know. But with the way the news reporters say the economy is picking up so much, think somebody'd be wanting to buy it.
Back to Chairperson Poole's question, how much, I thought it was like $1.5 million, $1 million to abate and demolish?
Yeah, it's hard, those buildings. I mean, four of the 5 are in the 50s. I'm going to tell you that the abatement of the asbestos alone, we're looking at $200,000 to $250,000. The lead-based paint and what they found, a lot of it depends on the regulations on whether you're recycling or whether you're taking your construction demolition material to North Carolina or South Carolina. Depends on how you do that. But for the whole thing to abate and demolish, and you are correct, if you go in there and abate, there will hardly be anything left to renovate or anything like that. $1.25 to $1.5 million. It's based off what I've seen off our current buildings that we have demoed or are getting ready to.
Why don't we put it back out for bid?
I don't have a problem putting it back out to bid. But I'd want to put a timeline. I mean, we need to do something. I think as long as this has been a problem and just gotten worse, 30 or 60 days, figure something if somebody wants it. Otherwise, I think we need to not make, Pam won't be too happy, I guess, but figure out something in a budget that's already going to be a bad budget year to do something. But I mean, it's not an eyesore, it's a problem out there. And, I don't have any problem with the requirements that were put in the contract. I think that you did exactly, I thought the offer was explained. The idea was not to flip the property. And if we're selling it for $10,000 or $1,000, even with the cost of the abatement, You know, I just think whoever, if somebody wants to buy it, they need to buy it and, you know, do something right with it, which is what I thought was going to happen with this last one, so.
If we do put it back out for bid and we do sell it, will we be, if we don't abate the asbestos or, you know, demo the property, will we be responsible in any sort of way for any of that? I know there was some of that discussion in the previous meeting, whenever we were discussing this with Woodson, that potentially with it having asbestos, that we would be somewhat responsible, or something.
Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware.
Yeah.
Let you buy, that's right, you buy it, you get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember that conversation, but I thought, for some reason, I recall something that we would still be responsible. Is that not so?
That was said then. I remember that
remember
conversation too.
I think that, you know, with reference to certain of the environmental laws, it's my understanding that anytime you are in the chain of title, which the county presently is, it's the record owner, that even if you do convey it, that you can still have some exposure depending on what were to happen in the future. But basically, we've tried to cover that risk in the contract with indemnification language. That doesn't entirely protect you necessarily if the party who's indemnifying you can't stand good for the indemnification. But you know, without getting into an extended discussion, there are some of the environmental laws which do, you're not completely absolved just by virtue of having to, just by having transferred the property to somebody else. So, yes, you're right. I mean, but it's hard to evaluate that risk, particularly for something like, you know, asbestos and lead paint. You know, most of the time, those kind of issues are ones that arise with groundwater, you know, underground storage tanks, those kind of issues, which we're not, I don't think we're talking about any of that here. There's an old package plant or something on that property, as I recall.
There's a North Carolina DENA permitted wastewater treatment package plant there, it's correct.
But usually it's more related to water issues that it could have seeped into the ground. I don't think that's really what we're looking at with this property.
I mean,
I would suggest that we put it back up for bid for 30 days and also put it in the budget for demolition. Because then by the time we get to the budget process, we'll know whether it's sold or not, and if it's not sold, then if we can work it in there, we work it in there, be demolished, and then we look at selling the parcel.
I would agree with you on that. Any other suggestions? Okay. Thank you.
Just for clarification, any particular conditions that you want us to?
I'd say the same
include?
conditions that we had
Okay.
before.
Right.
I mean, I'd go back, I know we had another bidder before, go back to the other bidder, and if anybody knows anybody, you know somebody, see, hopefully the paper will put it, maybe that'll be the lead headline on an article, it's back, there you go. You know, and see if anybody else is interested, I mean, but, I mean, if we can't do something on it in the next few months, I just think we have to face the reality that it's been, has it been 10 years?
8 years.
8 years?
8 years since.
That, you know, we've been trying, it's not like, that's a busy road, it's not like people going up and down that road don't realize something's sitting there. To think, you know, that it might be an option for somebody, I don't know. So.
It was an election issue in the commissioner's race in 2004, put it that way.
Well, there you go. I remember it well. Is that good enough for you, Mr. Marshall? Okay, next, planning and development, reservation of capacity for Afton Ridge Apartments. Susie Morris.
Good afternoon. This is a reservation of capacity certificate for the Afton Ridge Apartments. This project is 414 multifamily residential units, and it's actually scheduled to be located in the area of the new, not new now, but the Target Shopping Center at Afton Ridge. If you're familiar with that, it would be in close proximity to that. When we did the adequacy review, school capacity was not available for this particular project. Over the next 5 years, we don't have any additional seats that will be added in the CIP. Nothing is funded. So at this point, the commissioners would have 3 different options. There was a letter included in your packet from the applicant. Option 1 is to consider approval of the certificate based on the conditions of the ordinance, which would be no more than 20 multifamily units per year. If you remember, in the past, we have had other apartments that have asked for adjustments to that schedule, talking about that it's really not financially feasible to only build 20 a year when you're doing a large complex. So option 2 is in line with the applicant submitted a letter. They would like to adjust the build-out schedule to no more than 216 units in 2012, and then no more than 198 in 2013. That's what they feel that the market can absorb, and they would also request in option 2 that the payment be moved to building permitting. Option 3 would be if you all would like to consider something else. So staff would ask that the board consider one of these options, and then that it be placed on consent agenda.
Comments or questions? I would support option 2. Nobody's going to build 2 multifamily apartment units in a year, so, and 2011's already passed. But I would go with option 2. If somebody wants to do an investment in Cabarrus County, we need to encourage any kind of investments that we can get at this point in time, I think. So, any other comments?
I agree with you.
Anybody else? We'll put it on with option 2.
Okay.
Consent agenda. Okay.
Yes. That's what I would agree with.
Okay, next one is APFO, Adequate Public Facilities Voluntary Mitigation Payment Adjustment for the calendar year 2012. Susan Morris and
This is the presentation of the Adequate Public Facilities Voluntary Mitigation Payment Adjustment. As you all know, the ordinance does require that we look at this each year based on the Marshall and Swift valuation. This year, it would call for an increase in the voluntary mitigation payment. The first memo has this year on it and what that would be based on the original adoption. The current policy is 60.572%. If you remember, that was done in 2010 to keep the amount the same. Last year, the board decided to table this in January and then tabled it again, I think maybe in June or July, pending the outcome of the litigation with the APF ordinance. So we wanted to go ahead and bring it to you since the ordinance does require that you look at it and review it. And then what you do with it, of course, would be up to you at this time. And I don't know if Mr. Cook would like to add anything else.
Nothing other than what's in the agenda cover sheet for this item. That is that I recommend that we defer it till we hear the outcome of the APFO litigation.
any other comments? I would go with deferring it.
We do.
I'm not saying anything.
You're welcome to say anything you want to.
I think at this time, this point in time in our economy, that we need to look at getting rid of it completely. That way we don't have to worry about the APFO. We don't have to worry about this every year, and hopefully the builders can start building more houses. So I have no problems with the deferment. I have no problems getting rid of it completely.
I would go with deferring it. I mean, I just think we have pending litigation. That would be the only reason to defer it. I mean, I don't disagree with anything you
Builders
said.
start building more houses, who's gonna build the schools?
We will, eventually.
Well, county can't afford to do it.
Well, I'm not willing to restrict somebody's opportunity to develop their property as they want to.
Well,
If they want to develop their property, they want to develop their property. I think that we work in conjunction with them to understand the stressing, and we do that with different ways. I think there's different ways we can do it. I just think that this is the time that there's a lot of development that's not going to be done, but there is some development that can be done maybe. And if it would spur some people to get back to work, I'm all for it.
I'm not against people getting back to work. And I'm not against building the houses. My question is, who's going to pay for the school? And people can't afford no more taxes. They're with the economy like it is, most people's at the limit of what they can pay.
I think too, though, and I hear what you're saying here, both of you are saying, sitting right here between the two of you, I don't start whacking on you, is that, and I pointed this out several times before, is that we don't get, other than the pittance of money we get from the lottery for school construction, probably 99% of our funds to build schools with comes out of the local economy. So it comes out of the pocket of the taxpayer, or it comes out of the pocket of the builder that's financed, and eventually from that new homeowner. And so I think that's where the community understands, is that, and things are balanced, it's got to be played, but because I can clearly understand that we are, anything we can do to get things started back up in the financing world we're living in today. I don't think banks are willing to even finance the fees anymore, especially with them the developer carrying it, who's developing the property versus the builder, the building permit time when it's being built. So, but I think for right now, defer it is the right course of action, and we can have that discussion down the road somewhere.
Okay.
Commissioner Meismer?
I agree. Defer.
Defer it? Okay. So, right now, we're looking at deferring it as recommended by the county attorney. Okay. Next up is Think Cabarrus First Campaign and Budget Amendment. We have Shannon Johnson with the Council for a Sustainable Local Economy.
Good afternoon. Apologize, our leadership isn't here today. They will be at the regular board meeting. But today we're bringing to you, the council established their goals. One of the things they wanted to do was to look at developing a local first campaign that was countywide, to have two main points of interest. One would be an education and awareness piece for citizens to understand the importance of looking internally in your community to build your economy. And the second would be the very obvious one, which is to increase revenue for local businesses that provide goods and services. So together with the council, we put together a 6-month budget plan for this. Two things about this. It would be for businesses to join with a $20 fee, and that fee would be to cover the cost of materials of their joining packet, and it would also help it be a revenue neutral program so that it wouldn't cost the county any extra, wouldn't be any extra burden and cost for the program. And as the number of businesses join and the cost starts to become less per business, then there would be extra money for extra advertising and events that could go on for the later in the 2012 holiday season. So the request is to approve this budget amendment, and I'll take any questions.
Questions?
Is this going to get started before December of next year, or December of this year, excuse me?
This would be started as soon as you approve. We have IT working on a website. For that would be the primary business directory access, and the logo's been developed by the council. The plans for the rollout are in place. So the first major holiday event would be the Easter season.
Okay. I think it's great. I agree.
And I guess it will include computer and electronic repair services in here, local ones.
Yes, that is definitely a category.
Thank you.
I
I think it's a good idea. I support it.
Well, the council will be happy to hear that.
I say do it.
You said do it?
Do it.
Okay. Okay, sounds like everybody's okay with it. Thank you very much. Next up is 4-7, General Services, Construction and Demolition Landfill Operation and Financial Update. We have Kevin Grant and Kyle Billifer back. Kyle, you're getting a little expensive today, just to let you know.
Sorry about that.
Good afternoon. I'd like to briefly summarize the recent activities regarding the construction and demolition landfill and provide the landfill's current operating financial status. Back in May, as we discussed, the construction demolition landfill at that time had a limited amount of space. It was also discussed that the landfills experienced additional costs associated with increased regulatory compliance and the need to maintain closure, post-closure liability balance for the landfill. This, in conjunction with the reduction in revenue, created a situation where the landfill was unable to fund itself. Contributions from the general fund, as was discussed, was going to be needed whether we closed or expanded. It was at that time that we met with Greenway Waste. We drafted up a memorandum of understanding that we presented to the board back in May. That would have eliminated the need for the general fund to contribute to the landfill. We met with them, it was approved, and at the time we also realized that space was running out pretty rapidly. And in order for us to maintain our permit and keep that negotiations with Greenway Waste, we had to get with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and get it's not an expansion permit, but more of an extension of our existing cell that we're placing the waste. So we were doing that at the same time we were negotiating with them, and we were successful in getting it approved. I believe there's a drawing that kind of shows that area where we extended the landfill at. It's kind of just to the southeast of our existing cell that you see in like in the upper right-hand corner. So we received that approval to do the extension back in late July. And then we started to do the construction, which we actually did with just county employees ourselves. We did not have a contractor do this work for us. It probably saved us about $150,000 to do it on our own. And our guys did just a tremendous job for doing a project that they've never done before. So that was successful there. It was during this process, when we were doing the construction, that we had a breakdown in negotiations with Greenway Waste, primarily due to profit sharing and financial assurances. An email was sent to the board back in September 14th explaining this issue. And while that was going on, like I said, we did our extension for the extension for the landfill, and that was completed in early October. We received the permit to operate back on November 1st from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. That permit is good until 2016, although we're able to shut down at any time. It just gives us that much more room to think about what to do. Once we were done with the extension, we had an airspace survey conducted, which turned out to give us about 80,000 cubic yards of airspace remaining, which, based on an average of 2,000 tons per month, which is typical what we're seeing these days, that would give us airspace until about mid-2013. So if you look at, we've got a couple financial documents up there. That first one is if we wanted to close in 2013, basically showing the contribution from the general fund would be about $750,000. Now, if you go back to the previous one, or maybe it's the next one. Is there one more there? Okay, this first one here shows if we would shut down in 2012. It shows a general fund contribution of slightly over $1 million. Now, just note that that number might not be exactly correct, because the issue might be how I have to kind of massage that one southeastern slope, because the state, when we close it, wants a 3-to-1 slope. That slope currently is very steep, and we're also placing waste in that new extension area, so I might have to move some waste around, which would drive that cost up a little bit. So So basically, at this time, we're just asking guidance from the board whether we should look at closing this extension sometime in 2012 or filling up this extension that we have and running it to 2013.
Questions or comments?
If we were to keep it open until 2013, why wouldn't we also look at increasing the tipping fee?
The tipping fee is actually scheduled to go up $1 a ton July 1st of 2012. Now, this is just saying we're just apples to apples and kept the tipping fee. We could, that is an option. If that's what we recommend, we could do that.
I mean, to help balance this out, if it just went up $10 to $41.
Typically, we've been historically try to set our tipping fees a little bit lower than what the private sector is setting. If we get up too high, then we're competing with the private sector, and then probably if going at 41, we would be above the private sector, and we would no longer, our business would go down.
Yeah, the private sector tends to be right now about $38 a ton, somewhere in that ballpark. But that is true. I mean, we do risk if we go too high, all of a sudden everybody going to our facility, then we don't get any revenue. Then we have to kind of massage our operating expenses to make sure that it matches with the revenue coming in.
Aren't we in competition with the private sector right now?
I don't know if it's competition, but
well, they're charging $38. We're charging $31. I'm going $31.
That is true.
Well, that's true. Well, we're providing a service at a lower rate.
Right.
But if we get up there, then you are.
Yes, they're just going to flip the other way. They're going to start.
A lot of that is
we don't need
location.
to
Well,
exist.
We're in competition now. We're just being in more economical competition.
Right.
We're getting the business. Why don't we put it at $38?
I don't have any issue with that. I think that's probably a good
and be equal to what the
idea.
private market is. And that extra money go to the closing of the.
That can be done. Just caution about going too high, close to the market value, and that if we do, just because of possible location, physical location, that we don't get enough waste, we might be pushing that June 2013. I just caution that.
Okay. Right now.
Where does most of the waste come from?
Most of it is actually this side of the county, in Rowan County and the northern part of this county. It is split between here and what Highway 49 landfill has down in Harrisburg. There is a dividing line where people go to. We do get additional people just because it is cheaper.
Why don't we raise it to 35?
We don't have if I hear you right, there are not a lot of people, as far as you can tell, that are driving past one with the added fuel cost to get to ours.
See, that's what I was looking at. It's a $7.
Because, I mean, that's huge. If the fuel cost, you throw that in there and I'm driving an extra 20 miles, I
Yeah.
might be willing to pay $1 or $2.
But if you get
Because I'm going
above-
to save
be
on
above
fuel.
that,
So, I
because-
mean, you
yeah.
have to, but if most of it's coming from Rowan County, they would have to drive past us to get to the other places.
I heard there's going to be a little bridge be tore down here pretty soon in Rowan County that might be able to get.
Well, the crux of the issue is, do we close in 2012 or 2013? I think I would suggest we close in 2013, and we look at increasing the tipping fee at least $4. I would say $7 to $38.
I mean, and I would agree with you. I don't think there's a debate between $750 and over $1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an easy answer.
Yeah. Well, Kyle
But it would
just
be
has-
nice to get that lower and.
Well, he just got his money for his abatement to Bethel.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Make sure there's enough space in there if we have to do the demolition for Bethel.
I'm
that
not
it's
sure
got
if we got
space
room
to
for
go.
that one.
No, I'm just saying I think it closes in 2013. I think we increase to at least $4, like Commissioner Burge has said, or up to $7. I prefer $7.
I think one thing I'd suggest maybe is that because this is, what we're looking at is making a decision for the people that are actually out there on the ground, is if instead of $7, just saying $7, we say we up to $7 and let them look at what the market is looking as far as adjusting it up. We want to maximize it. That, if it turns out $7 puts it 38 and suddenly everything goes away, nobody's showing up out there, then you have the flexibility to drop it back,
Well,
to
I would just
35,
say that I don't think you go up and then come back.
Yeah.
Because when you go up, you already lose.
You
So
lose it.
I would go
Yeah.
more to the 35,
Mhm.
be a little bit less than the competition.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking is
Um,
if somebody's paying $7 a ton to to transport it to our facility, then there's already a wash for them. So if you go up, add anything to it, you're gonna start losing those people. You know, I don't know how many there are though, so.
Mr. Meesner?
I agree, 35.
And 2013?
Yeah.
Commissioner Birch?
35, 2013.
Commissioner White?
That's fine.
You okay with 35 in 2013?
Good.
You okay with that?
That'll work.
The close date of the June 2013, that's obviously a moving date based on all of a sudden if we start getting a lot more waste coming in. So what we'll do is, rather than spending so much money on airspace and everything, we kind of know where we are and what we have left. So Kevin will keep a close eye on it, and then if need be, we will come back to you if that date is going to change.
And these amounts include closing. You're not going to come back and need another $1 million to close it, are you?
No, that does include closing.
Now, let's just say, let's be very optimistic and say that in 2012, things start rolling along and really getting good. Is there an option to extend it further? Or is this truly the end of the space that we have right now?
This is, the issue becomes having to line the landfill. Now, we do have some future phase expansion areas to the south of where we currently place the waste. However, unless the state could turn around and say there's a couple acres of land that I could just basically dig a hole without a liner and place it, it probably is the end. Now, that's what I was going to ask, without having to do extra engineering cost or anything like that. We do have some data from the last expansion project 2 years ago. I may go to the state and say, okay, without having to give you any additional information, is there any areas that we can place additional waste? Because what we showed with us doing the construction ourselves, so we can do it fairly inexpensive, we did that construction within this year's operating budget. So if that's the case, I mean, I don't think I'm going to go and spend a lot of money looking into this at this time, but it is something I will place a phone call. But other than that, if that falls through, yeah, this is it.
Okay. I mean, I think it would be worth placing a phone call. I wouldn't put a lot of money into it, but,
Right.
you know, how long has the landfill out there been operating? Do you have any idea?
Since early 80s or late 70s. It originally was accepting municipal solid waste at the time.
So, I mean, it's been there for a long time, served a good purpose. So, everybody good with that? Great, thank you.
And just from a fiscal point of view, it's not our intent to actually make that transfer. We will restrict that money based on the way that the calculations are done from the state. They require you to fund the post-closure cost at what the market bears for that service. And we have employees who can actually do some of that coverage of the landfill at a substantially lower cost. So we will just reserve that money within the general fund, and we have verified with the state that we're in compliance, along with the auditors, of meeting the obligation of the post-closure closure, but we are not going to actually transfer that money over unless we absolutely have to.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioners, the next thing is to look at the actual agenda for 2 weeks. So if you'll flip the page in the handout that you have and look at that, we have obviously a recognition. Mainly look at the second page for the consent and the new business. Is there anything under consent or that you think needs to be moved to new business? Likewise, anything in new business that you think needs to be moved to consent, for example? Number 7, under new business. Would you want to move that to?
Number 5, we could move to consent, I think.
Okay. Let's go. 1 we have to do, 1, 2, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, and 4 we have to do because they're public hearings. So 5 is discussing the Old Bethel School property. Do you want that on consent, or do you want to leave it under new business so that we can talk about it more? Or under consent, we're not going to discuss it again. If it's under new business, we're going to make an appeal for somebody to come by it.
I think there could be a small discussion to bring some attention to. Maybe not discussion, but at least that
Comment.
It's brought up and talked about.
So you would say leave it under new business?
Which one's that? Yeah.
I would second Commissioner Meismer's request that this stay under new business.
So we'll leave that one under new. The next one is the reservation of capacity for Afton Ridge Apartments. Do you want to move that one to consent?
Consent.
Consent. Number 7, the APFO consent.
Consent.
Number 8, Think Cabarrus first campaign budget amendment, consent.
Consent.
I'd say new business, so it can be discussed, so people know. And
Yeah, wherever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would give their chairman an opportunity to come in and give an update of where they're at as well.
Okay.
That's fine. The corner of Union and Corbin Street,
I guess new business, the way it sounds.
I would suggest new business. Is that okay, Mr. White? And then the landfill, new business or consent?
Consent.
Consent? or new
The
business?
issue in regards to opening or closing it in 2013 would be consent. I don't know if they're ready to do, we did not, we got sidetracked, or I sidetracked by going talking about the tipping fee. I don't know if you want to put, if we're going to have the information to put the tipping fee now, or do we wait until July 1? Typically, we wait until July 1 before I do our tipping fees. So I would say the issue of closing it is consent, and then it comes back to us about the tipping fees in March, April, May, something like that in regards to the tipping fees.
We can add the tipping fees to the budget process when we do the change of fee schedules.
There you go.
Okay.
So I'd say I agree
So we'll
with
move consent for the date for closing it, 2013. Okay, so we're going to move 6, 7, and 10 to the consent agenda. Okay? If there are no other changes, then
Madam
I
Chair,
would- go
I
ahead.
just had one under recognitions, and I don't know whether, and I'm not sure how the best way to approach it, we want to approach it this way, is that, talk about it now, and then maybe have something more formal on a regular meeting. But I did get a note that Betsy Carpenter, who was really the original founder of our Humane Society here in Cabarrus County, and was instrumental in getting a lot of things set up back in the 90s, is in pretty poor health. And I thought it'd be nice for us to just some way mention her, and recognize her for what she's done. And I don't know if we want to do that with a resolution or just a mention. You know, I don't think most people
What do you
only
prefer?
recognize that that's the name of the street where the animal shelter's at. That's the only people know what her name is. But I would like to, if we could, do a resolution.
Okay,
I'll
are
get
you
that-
going
I'll
to
get that
write the
put- yeah,
resolution?
I'll get it put together. So.
And the deadline for getting that to you?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, so we can get it in the agenda. Okay, so add a recognition.
Yeah.
I know the Odell Eagles football team, you mentioned them originally. They're
They
very
won.
excited to come. They won.
They-
And they're very excited to come and be on camera with us, so. Okay, if there are nothing else that needs to be added or changed, I would accept a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
Madam Chair.
Yes, how do you want it
I do
done?
apologize. The closed session is not needed for today. I assume it's not needed for the regular meeting as well.
That could be subject to change if something occurs in the meantime.
Let's just leave it
But
on
for-
there, and then we can take it off at the regular meeting. Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented and as discussed today.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and in that case, anything else that you have? Okay, then we are adjourned.
Well, you want a motion to adjourn?
I was just going to say it. You want to make a motion to adjourn? He's going to keep me honest. That's a good
I'll
thing,
move
but
to
you know.
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you very much.
You should know the way you should have said it.